Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today is a really sweet video. Today we're going to be talking about Overland rigs. I want to do a terrain-based guide depending on your function for your vehicle. Now, not all rigs are built the same and they're not meant to be. I'm going to put on the screen here this before and you can see here as the after. But we built this for purpose, and today we're going to bring you through those different types of terrain builds to maybe help you with wherever you're at in the world, whether you're in the Ozarks, out in the Moab, or if you're here on the East Coast and you do a lot of trail riding, like with Jeep trails and more of like mountainous rocky terrain. That's what we do here. By all means, we're not in the desert, so that is also a different build that you can build. So let's get to it. Let's talk about these terrain builds. All right, everybody, so we are going to go with our first terrain build, and that is where we are here on the East Coast. We're going to focus on rocky roads, mountain passes, and those forest roads that you see a lot of times up here, and that is what we're running. So as you can see, this is not a stock truck anymore. This is what I've built. This is my 23 Chevy Colorado, and I'm going to tell you the first couple things that you need. They're not necessarily budget friendly all the time. You can go with those options, but I'm telling you, you got to do it the right way, right? It's built, not bought. You're gonna have to put a little bit of money into these. It is an expensive hobby, but if you do it the right way, you can have a really high performance machine. All right, so first thing we're gonna talk about is tires, especially for these rocky roads. We wanna have a tire that has a wide enough width in it where you can float over big rocks and everything when you're aired down. These are BF Goodrich KO2s sitting on KMC wheels. They look pretty nice, so make sure that your tire complements your wheel just so you don't have a jacked up looking rig. But a couple other tires just to recommend right off the bat. You got some Falcon Wild Peaks, you got Cooper Discoveries that are really good. You can go with Nitto. They got Ridge Grapplers, Trail Grapplers, super aggressive, and even BF Goodrich came out with the new ones called, I believe they're KO3s. And then you have a new set of tires that are called, what are they called? Rough terrain. So like maybe between an all-terrain and a mud terrain, it's in the middle, it's a rough terrain. So those are some options for you there. So the first thing you're gonna wanna look at is your tires. The next thing, if you can afford it, is gonna be your suspension. This truck is sitting on a 2.5-inch lift. This is an Icon Stage 3 with remote reservoirs. All right, so remote reservoirs means that it's gonna provide a much better dampening, meaning if you're hitting bumps and you're going really fast, this thing should ride a lot better than stock because those remote reservoirs are absorbing those impacts, and they do it pretty darn well. So if you are looking for that build that can go through the rocks, the mountains, the bumps, you definitely need a lift kit. You definitely need tires to complement your lift kit. Remember, you can go as high as the lift you want. If you got small tires, you're not going any bigger. So remember, the lift has to complement the tires as well, okay? So if you can see back here, we got those Icon, we got those remote reservoirs in the back. I also have a 1.5-inch block while we're talking about suspension sitting here, and that is what makes this Trail Boss sit so nicely right here, just the way it is. And going from the rocky passes and stuff out here on the East Coast, I can tell you firsthand that having the tires in the lift is huge. The bigger tires gives you your clearance. The lift kit, along with those better shocks, gives you a better, more comfortable ride for whatever you're doing. The third thing I want to speak about real quick is your rock rails. So these are rock sliders. You get a lot of hate for having a body mounted rock sliders, but I can tell you firsthand that these NFAB rock sliders have given me absolutely no problem. They're mounted in 8 different positions on that body line. So where I would like to have a frame mounted rock slider, they did not make them when I bought this right away. So we've got the frame mounted ones. I've hit them, I've slid on them, I've had no issues with them. They haven't bent anything, and they actually work quite well, especially if you're going with a budget build, but you still want a quality product. Those NFABs work really, really well. So speaking of rocks, y'all, if you have the money, get the underbody protection. And I'm gonna show you what I don't have. I don't have underbody protection. That is a plastic skid plate, okay? Not recommended. So if you do have the option to get it, get your body protection. Make sure you can protect, you know, your oil pan, your transmission, your transfer case, all that stuff. If I had the ZR2, this would have already came with quite a few skid plates. Unfortunately, I don't have the ZR2, even though it's built like a ZR2. And I do need to get some aftermarket skids for this, and that would make it even a sweeter deal. If we jump over here to the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon stock, right out of the factory, the Rubicon actually comes with all of those fancy dancy skid plates, just like the ZR2. So it's got the front, it's got a gas tank, it's got transmission, and it's got even, there's a couple other ones under here that they have. It almost goes underneath the whole unit. Now, what I would really like to do is get a full underbody protection on this, but they don't yet make it actually for the full length of it. Maybe they do, AEV might, but I mean, that is pretty pricey, y'all. You're looking at $500 per skid plate nearly. So you got to kind of just be conscious of that. If we were going to go into the next sector of what you should have for areas like us, because we do sometimes need to use a winch, front bumper with a winch would be nice. This one has been untouched because, listen, it's expensive and I have not put it on there. The Jeep is running a 13,000 pound open road winch. The truck unfortunately doesn't have anything yet. And you could go with a rear bumper here. Not quite necessary on this one. I think I might end up going with something where I can hold my spare tire though, just because that would be a really nice option there. But as it sits, guys, let's just recap real quick. You guys need a good set of tires, have a lift kit that complements your tires, and then rock sliders and underbody protection. If you are in a rocky area like us, those I'd say are your critical items to have on your rig. We can talk about the overlanding setups like the tent and everything later on, but I'm just trying to give you a basic terrain-based build. If you're on the East Coast here, you want to get your truck up and off the ground, underbody protected, because our rocks are sharp and they're jagged and you can scrape underneath, and you definitely don't want to do that. So I'm trying to think. I think that is pretty much all I would do, kind of like what I have done to the Colorado right now, and that is purposely built for the East Coast. Now let's talk about a few extra items that you can have here. You've got the rock slide, not the rock sliders. You've got the traction boards up there, have a little bit of extra fuel with you. What you see up here is a rooftop tent, 4x4 Colorado. It's a big one. Unfortunately, this one's a little heavy, so I can't necessarily take it off all the time that I want to. And I would also always recommend either having a pull-out sunshade or maybe a 270. And if you do go for a bed rack, guys, make sure you get a quality one like Extrusion Overland. This one holds everything, also has an access gate here so you can get in here and do what you need to do there, which is really nice. It's very convenient. But if you're gonna go with anything, make sure you buy once and cry once, okay? Don't be buying 2 or 3 times until you figure out how to get it right. Just buy once and cry once. Same with your lift kit. If you're gonna buy a lift kit, don't buy it cheap. Buy once, cry once, y'all. Please take it from me. I've made a ton of mistakes, and that's why I'm making this video, so you can have a basic terrain-based build for maybe your location and what you need. So that's what I want to say for the rocky forest road mountain passes. I think that kind of covers everything we want to talk about. Let's talk about a possible desert setup. I'm going to use the truck for an example, but we're going to kind of go into the hypotheticals because this is not set up for sand. And I'm just going to talk about a few things that you might want to have if you're set up for, I want to say, being more on the Midwest or West Coast, like maybe in sand or maybe like sand and rock, and we'll just go from there. So let's go on to the second segment right now. All right, guys, so let's talk about your second terrain that we're build that we're going to talk about, and that's going to be like heat, sand, and semi-rock. All right, I'm thinking Colorado, Arizona, maybe Moab, getting on the dunes, having a slightly different build for its purpose. Okay, so if you're going out there, having a set of these icons is perfect. They're remote reservoir. The coilovers are tuned to hit those, go fast on the sand and be able to absorb that shock. So doing an icon lift, something maybe like having some king shocks in there, some Fox shocks in there. They actually make them where they're selectable dampening. All of these companies make them where they're selectable dampening. Of course, the more selection you have, the higher the price is going. So again, remember, buy once, cry once. Build it right the first time. Build it smarter, right? The smarter you go, the harder you can wheel with it. You're gonna wanna get yourself a good solid pair of tires for your sand runners. Wider tires that can float over sand and rock is gonna be ideal. So check out these tires, the tires we listed before, maybe the Falcon Wild Peaks, maybe some KO3s. They look pretty sweet now. And maybe some Cooper Discoveries. We've run those a whole lot in sand, and we've always had a really good job. So you got your lift kit, your tires. We're going to talk about the same thing again when you're in that you're in that really rocky areas like Colorado and stuff like that, where maybe you went from sand, now you're going on to some like mountainous terrain a little bit. That underbody protection, we're going to hit that again. So you're going to notice a lot of these essentials kind of mesh together, and that's because a lot of them can be used for the same stuff, especially when you're in sand, mountain passes, forest roads. You want to go fast, so you got the really nice shocks. Some other stuff to think about is if you're in a really hot environment, having a separate like ram air. So a lot of people, they do what's called like a snorkel. Are they really internally sealed where water won't get into them? I don't know. But let me tell you what, a lot of people put a snorkel on this baby, not because they want to go through water, but because they want to get air from up here and not in your engine bay, okay? The cooler the air, the better the turbo performs. So a lot of people, if you've seen the snorkels for this truck specifically, a lot of them are just trying to relocate their air box up further and out of the engine bay because that engine is hot, it's over, you know, it works harder to cool the engine. But if it can take in some fresh air, it operates a little differently. So that's a pro tip for you. Also, if you are running in those desert conditions, think about maybe having a transmission cooler. I'm not sure if GM sells one specifically for this model, but I know there's a ton of them out there for all different types of trucks that you can rig up, and you can keep that transmission cooler because this naturally runs hot. So I could only imagine if you're in Arizona heat or California heat or the Colorado heat and you're running this in there, all right? So just some things to think about here. Again, that underbody protection, like we had said before, get yourself a pair of solid rock sliders and you should be good. Just running in the sand is a little different. Think about breathability, cooling, tires, and your suspension are really gonna matter in those conditions when you're talking about going fast in the sand. When you hit the rocks, you can go back to the first video and we can re-talk about having the protection and the armor that you need to go ahead and get over those rocks. Or if you do hit the rocks, you're protected and you don't have to worry about it. Now, we're gonna caveat into one separate topic, and that's gonna be when you're in some like wetlands, maybe Florida, maybe Ozarks and stuff like that. So that's gonna be next. All right, everybody, let's talk about the topic number 3, terrain number 3, and that's wetlands. Wetlands, you're gonna have a slightly different tire. You're not gonna go with an all-terrain. You're gonna go with a mud terrain, okay? I can tell you firsthand, I've used the Nitto Trail Grapplers, which are a mud terrain, and those things are crazy aggressive. So make sure if you're going into any type of wetlands, you have proper tires. If you do not have a proper tire, you're gonna have a hard time. And I think you're gonna definitely need a mud terrain and run that regularly if you're in that area doing that regularly. And of course, you're gonna always revert back to the lift. Again, buy once, cry once, get a good lift, make sure you're out there. And I think one thing that evades people is check your differentials. Are your breathing tubes working properly, and are they properly vented? Are they high enough vented where you can actually submerge your axles and you're not gonna be taking in water? All axles come with breather tubes. Not all of them are built alike though. So make sure you double check those. It's gonna be important for snorkeling. If you're water fording up to here, make sure that your air box is up and out of the way and that it's sealed. So a lot of people I've seen, they're like, oh, I've got a snorkel, but you know, it's not properly sealed. So even though you're fording water here and your breather's up here, somewhere along this line, you're still leaking water inside of that breather box, okay? And that can lead to a lot of problems and a lot of damage, and we don't want to do that. So for wetlands, I want you all to focus heavily on your tires, your suspension setup, however you're going to do that. You're definitely going to want to have a breather that's above, so you're going to want to remove the air box from in here and take in air in somewhere else and make sure it's sealed. And you're going to definitely want a bumper with a winch, especially if you're going through water, getting stuck, and make sure you got a tree around you or something, right? Because that's going to be all the difference, especially when you're in a wet condition. Nobody likes to be wet and stuck. I definitely don't. So I would rather tackle rocky terrain than be wet and stuck and without a winch, okay? So those are just some things to consider. Let's go ahead and move towards the back so we can talk about a few more things. All right, so as we know, this truck right here has a G80 automatic locking rear differential. It's not a posi, it's different, okay? What sucks is that Chevy did not put a selectable locker in here, but either way, not that important. This can be applicable to rocks, sand, pretty much everywhere, but especially wetlands. Wetlands and rocks, it's really important to have a locker. If you, just have regular four-wheel drive, you're gonna have a tough time. Now, you can also get a locker for the front. On the Chevy Colorado Trail Boss and I guess under Z71, you're gonna have a lot of problems getting a front locker in the front. There's not a whole lot of designs out there yet, unless you're running the ZR2. So the ZR2, easy to get a locker in there. If I'm wrong, comment below on what locker I can use in the Trail Boss, because I've called a few places that do Eaton lockers, Detroit lockers, you got ARB, all these companies, including East Coast Gear Supply, and they told me that this truck right here, they currently do not make any lockers that go in the front. They told me that the ZR2 obviously has a bigger differential in the front. It's built different, it's got more room, which is why the ZR2 obviously is more expensive. But anyways, just to end my rant there is, right now currently there's no locker option for this truck for the front that I'm aware of. You could definitely get one in the rear because it's a little different, but the independent front suspension makes it a little more difficult to put a locker in there. But if you're running in any kind of wet or nasty terrain, you're gonna definitely want a locker. One you can either select one that's automatic locking, or you can do air lockers, there's e-lockers, there's a ton of different ways you can go, but I definitely think that is important if you're running in those types of conditions. So you tell me, do you guys have lockers? Which ones do you run? Do you know if I can put a locker in the front of this truck and keep my G80 the same? Because honestly, the G80 does a great job. I have no qualms with it. It's done a good job. It's a little abrupt when it kicks in, you know, it's like, oh, kind of gets you, but other than that, no qualms. So other than wrapping up just some few essentials, I think that's what I would like to say about the wetlands, wet and sandy conditions. And let's just talk about a few essential items that you might want to bring with you on the trail if you are starting your beginner build that you don't want to go to the trail without, okay? All right, guys, so let's talk about some essentials that you should bring with you. So make sure y'all, when you guys are heading out with your first overland rig, make sure you have some safety things. Make sure you have GPSs. If you don't, maybe a GMRS radio, like a Baofeng. I've used the UV9 Golf, and you can use Onyx Off-Road, the Gaia app. There's All Trails. There's a couple different apps you can use out there. Download offline maps. And the most important thing is get on the trail and know your truck's capability. Obviously, the Jeep Wrangler over here has front and rear locking differentials and can do different things than the Colorado Trail Boss over here. Now, yes, these are completely they're in two different ballparks, right? You have a heavy truck over here with no front locker, and you have a semi-lighter Jeep over here, but stock. So, that does make a difference because this is only stock. So again, though, just my point is they're two different animals. This one is really nice. It's really loved in the community for off-roading and overlanding. The Wrangler can really be used for everything, y'all. It's a pretty functional vehicle, and we've proven in the Colorado community, I've seen everything from work trucks to ZR2s built, lifted, and modified specifically for the overland community, and I think it's awesome. We get to all share what we've done, you know, how we want to build it. And I think we can all learn by each other's mistakes. That's why I always say buy once, cry once. I've tried to go cheap the first time and it doesn't work out. So you always end up, just go with what you know is the right way to go the first time, so you don't have to keep buying stuff over again. So back to what I was saying, make sure you have your first aid, make sure you have your apps, make sure you have a radio, okay? Portable AC air pump, right? Portable compressor with you if you can bring one. You can bring your inflation and deflation tools, shovel, axe, chainsaw if you don't have one already. With this one, with the extrusion rack, you can pretty much mount all that stuff wherever you want it. I don't have anything on this one yet besides a winch. So one of the big differences is I got a winch on the Jeep, but not on my main Overland vehicle. This is my wife's Jeep, so we still have to build it up. So mention, just to drop me a comment, what do you think? Should I do a 2.5 inch lift kit, 3.5 inch, 35s, 37s? I don't want to re-gear. This is a 3.6 automatic, and just for everyone's knowledge, if you haven't been watching the channel before, the Chevy Colorado runs a 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It does pretty good, honestly. 430 foot-pounds of torque at 310 horsepower. So honestly, it's not too bad. But after all, you know, hey, it's a heavy truck, so it doesn't get that great of gas mileage, and neither does this, to be honest with you. But those are just a few items to consider before you're going off-road. So remember, let's just cover what we did. So we covered the rocky mountain passes and forest roads. We covered some desert running, dune running, and maybe hot weather areas. And we covered some wetlands and what you might want to consider with having in those wetlands. So 3 different terrains, 3 different types of builds. So build it for your purpose, build it for your area. Buy once, cried once, and build it right. Thank you for watching, everyone. God bless and have a great day.